Well, welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain. My name is Chelsea Sutton, and this series is brought to you by Markel Insurance. I'm so thrilled to be sitting down with a good friend and a well-respected National Reining Horse Association judge, Mr. Donnie Bricker. We have had the opportunity to work together many times, and we'll do it again here at the Run for a Million 2024, where you are one of our reining judges. It's not easy to become a judge, and it certainly is not by happenstance that you got to judge an event like this. Take me back to the very beginning. What was your introduction to horses?
Just basically riding horses, and my dad bought us horses, and we started going to open shows and having fun, and then stumbled onto the reining, seen the reining show, and kind of just fell in love with it.
What was it? That's it. And I don't know this about you. At the open show, you've got a little bit of everything.
Did the barrel racing and the pole, all the gymkhana stuff, and showed some open, just pleasure horses, not high quality, but just like fun stuff.
What was it about the reining that hooked you?
The first reining I went to, I never forget. I tell everybody it was horses there like Leo Barbank and White Is, Sugar Plum Cash, Mr. Boogie Jack, and the horses stopping, like the slide stop is what really intrigued me, how they could slide so far and stay so free with their front end, and then the spins. But just the whole deal took a hold of me to where I figured I wanted to do it.
So you started riding what age were you?
With my reiners, I was probably in my early 20s, the first time I rode a reiner or went to a reining.
And then take me from there.
Well, I bought a broke horse and left it with Butch Gardell in training and did that. And then I bought an unbroke coming 2-year-old and broke her and wanted to train her myself and went places for help. And she was a great mare, very forgiving. And I got to winning on her, doing good. And then it just seemed like I had a job, a really good job, and it seemed like all the money I was making I was spending on my horses. And then I went and rode with Bill Horn for a weekend, and when I was leaving, he offered me a job to come work. So on the way home, I thought about it and thought instead of just spending money on it, maybe I could learn how to make a career out of it. And then I went to work for Bill, and that started it all.
The rest is history.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to work for a lot. I mean, I worked for different horse trainers. Like I was at Bill's almost 2 years, and I moved from there to Rocky Dares. And then I went to Dick Peepers, and then I was on my own for a while. And then life kind of turned around a bit, and I had an opportunity to go work for Bobby Avila up in Oregon. So I moved to Oregon and was there for 3 years, and then just went on my own again, and things been going.
Well, you throw these names out like they're, just everyday people, but you're naming some of reining industry icons.
I've been very fortunate to work for some of the best, and they were all very good to me. I mean, I did, you work and do your job, and they were all very good at teaching and helping me get better and put me on horses that would help me get better. So it was all good stuff.
At what point through all of that, you're seeing in the industry begin to blossom? Those were the glory days in really reining, evolving in this country. You're watching horsepower begin to expand and develop, especially in reining. At what point did you say, I think I might want to become a judge?
I'll tell you when that's I remember that like it's yesterday, because like a lot of these other young competitors, everybody blames it on the judges. And I'm in Oklahoma City, and at that time, we had Alan Mitchells and Rick Weaver were running it, doing it, and I, like every other young, wise guy, got to go complain about the judging. And I'll never forget, because Rick looked and he said, "Do you have your judge's card?" And I said, "No." And then them two just laughed and walked away. And as they were walking away, I said, "Hey, I know what you're trying to say." I said, "I get it." So that was when I went and got my card. I went to the school and went to the seminar and then start judging. And judging, it's everybody should go to the schools and the seminars to learn how they're being judged. But yet, when you're judging, it really helps you with your training, show, and giving lessons, and really what you need on a horse and what you don't need. There's a lot of things we put on them that may contradict the way you're showing them. And as you're judging, those things really stick out.
Give me an example.
Like a horse hiding behind the bridle, a horse that they'll want them to be off the bridle, but give up being willingly guided. And the guys that get from point A to point B to point C the smoothest are usually the guys that are winning the most. They can set up the maneuver, to challenge the maneuver, to complete the maneuver, and stuff like that. When you're judging, it's just like being paid to learn while you're there. And these horses and these guys training them and showing them are so good, and you have a passion for the sport. It just all feeds into the whole concept.
So you get your judge's card. For those who might not be familiar, take me through what it takes to get your card and then to stay licensed.
You go to a school and you got to pass that test, and then you got to go to a judge's seminar and get through and pass that test. And then once you become a judge, it was almost 2 years before I got hired to judge. And the first show I judged was the Denver Summer Slide, which is huge. And when I was, you get prepared, you go prepared, and you're nervous. Anybody that says they don't get nervous the first time they start judging. I was nervous and judged a lot of horses. Back then, that rookie reining would have 146 in it, and then the limited non-pro the next day had 154. And I judged those two classes back to back, one day then the next. And I think that helped me a lot with judging because of the penalties that occur in those divisions, and then really let you know whether or not you want to do it. If it doesn't take a hold of you and keep you intrigued at doing good, I don't feel you should do it. And it really interests me. I had a feel for it, and it just went from there. And then once you do it, you judge a show and they're happy with your work, you start getting more shows.
You make it sound simple, but there's a lot of work, there's a lot of preparation. You've got to continually test and make sure that you maintain.
Every 2 years we retest, and you go to seminars, and then we can get on, they got programs now through the Rainer Suite where we can get on and watch runs, watch penalty clips, and keep yourself updated and prepared. Like when you come, like that group we got judging we come prepared, like talked and studied videos and discussed stuff over the phone. And then when you come here, we have a prep session, but you got to work at it. It ain't just something you do. You got to want to be good at it to stay good at it.
Give me an example for the kinds of things that you would do to make sure that you are mentally ready for an event like this, where you are seeing 16 of the best, not only in the country, in the world.
Well, the good maneuvers come to you. The good maneuvers are like when you're out there and we have 15, and even though we have a maneuver evaluation tape, which sets our standard as to what's a correct maneuver, what's a plus half maneuver, a plus one or a plus 1.5. But then when that first horse comes in the gate, how you mark it will set where you got to mark the rest. You're comparing and staying consistent. And in these horses that are here are the best of the best. And we're seeing 15, and they drag every 3, and you got to stay sharp because they're hard to separate. The maneuvers are strong, the maneuvers are good, and you don't wish a penalty on nobody. But when they step into one, it makes our job easier, But when you got we have runs where you got 76s, 76.5, 77s. Those runs are so close, and you got to really keep yourself disciplined and sharp as to what your plus 1 and plus 1.5 are.
So I want to talk about the way the scoring works for a moment. In rating, that horse walks in with a score 70, and it starts at a 0, which denotes correct, and then it's going to move up or down based on each maneuver plus half, plus 1.5, as you just mentioned, on the good side or down. But there's also another element, which is penalties, rule infractions, if you will. Talk me through a few penalties that we might see in the reining and how they might be applied.
In this event here, we'll see spin penalties. If a horse goes up to a quarter overspin or underspin, it'll be a half-point penalty, and then past a quarter, it'll be a 1-point penalty. And then they go to a half, there'll be a 0, a no score. And then we have, you'll see a lot when they get challenged in those spins, is their shutoff, is if they get a penalty or don't get the penalty. And then when they get challenged in circles, running those circles hard out there, if a horse steps out of lead, it's a 1-point penalty. If a horse goes for a speed change from a large fast to a small slow and they break gait to a trot, quit loping, not necessarily a trot, but break gait, and that's a 2-point penalty. And we'll see them tomorrow night. It happens when they get challenged in a maneuver in a rollback. A horse freezes up in a rollback, gets stopped, and then refuses to roll back. That's a 2-point penalty. And they can trot out of a rollback. 2 steps is a half-point penalty. From 2 to 4 is a 2-point penalty. So you got to be sharp on your penalties. And then when you're judging the maneuver, I myself like to call out the maneuver score. Then if there's a penalty, call that after the score. That way you don't forget what you were going to mark the maneuver.
And, you used the rollback penalties, and I think that's a great example because we're watching it, we get excited, the lights are on, the music's blaring, we're hooting and hollering. In a rollback, those penalties can happen like that.
Well, you can have multiple penalties, too. A freeze up and a trot, or they could come out low, break gait. I mean, there's a lot of things can happen in a short amount of time. Yep. And you got to just be sitting there with like the best advice I come from was from a guy that pretty good. And when you sit in there, you let the reining come to you. Like when we go in there and judge, it's like even though you're anticipating a lot of good horses and a lot of good riders, you can't predict what's going to happen. So you got to sit there with an open mind, almost like enjoying the show, and just let it come to you. Don't try to, here comes a really good horse or a really good rider, and you can't predict it. My job is to just document what I see happen in front of me.
Was going to be one of my questions because every single one of those competitors personally, what they're capable of. Every single one of those horses you've maybe even judged before. So I think you did a great job of highlighting, and I'm sure that's a skill set, to not.
Well, you anticipate. That's the way it's got to be, because I like horses, and there's horses that you favor, or you think, boy, I'd really like to have that horse or breed to it or have a colt by it. But yet when they come in the show, it's just a plain bay horse. You can't get in, let the emotion take over. I just got to sit there and do my job.
Explain if style has a role in the scorecard and how you look at that in the arena.
Style is something we never wanted to let it get into. Like with our A general rule, if they're willingly guided and pleasing to watch, as far as where their heads are, or no, I don't want a horse that's trapped. To me, when I have a horse that comes in and you all of a sudden, you got a scribe, you mark your maneuvers, and then the scribe reads out the score like it's a 76.5. I always think, well, what did I like about that? And it was pretty. It was pleasing to watch. The horse was doing it willingly, not forcefully. And I always sit after we're done, and you always look at the top 3 or 4 placings, and it's generally a horse that enjoyed doing his job, didn't have to do his job. And you see it, when you're looking at them one compared to the other, that kind of thing really shows up,
Explain in a maneuver what would be credit earning, what would make something, and you've used a few phrases, but I would like for you to highlight it specifically for the audience. What would denote that something's good, good, great, or excellent versus minus half?
I think that every maneuver has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when a horse has a good approach and executes a good maneuver, and finishes it with no slop. Like a lot of horses will run really straight to a stop and they'll slide really far and pretty, and then at the end of it they get like happy feet, where they keep shuffling and stepping and wiggling around. That horse did a good maneuver, but he didn't execute a good ending. But now a horse that can really come into that approach smooth and run straight and slide far and pretty and then just stand there effortlessly and not move, that's willingly guided. That horse did exactly what the rider asked him to do and didn't anticipate anything on his own. That would be a much stronger maneuver. That would mark more.
Sure. Well, and I appreciate that explanation, because especially in our patterns that have, the run around the end approaching to that stop, as fans, we often forget that whole entire run around, that whole entire earlier portion of the maneuver is a part of that maneuver. It's a part of that approach. We get wowed by the stop at the end, or maybe even the rollback at the end, but we forgot that they, were weird around the end, or they maybe had to swap leads a few times to get straight, or they were off in the arena, right? All that goes into it.
Well, for some of these horses, we'll see they've been showed aggressively, for a few years, and when their approach, I like the rider to ask them, not the horse to tell them when they're leaving for a stop. And if the horse takes a hold of the bridle, we're back to unwillingly guided. So that's credit, taking away credit, not giving credit.
You saw what the industry was like before the Run for a Million, and we're now on year 5 here at this event. And when it started, 15 horses, at the time it was 12 as an invitational, was an absolutely revolutionary format. We don't do that in reining. And even now, we've got 16 competitors. They had to qualify months ago to get here. It's a really special and sort of unique experience in reining that we don't see anywhere else. When you think about The Last Cowboy and, even shows like Yellowstone that give glimpses into our world, for you, and with your farm at home and horses and the work that you do as a judge, what do you think all of that has done for our industry?
Oh, I tell everybody, we couldn't thank Taylor enough for setting us up. It's been such a boost in the industry and showed people our industry that haven't seen it before. No different than the first time I went to a reining and seen a horse stop. It took a hold of me. I got a passion for it. I wanted to do it. And for him to allow us, give us this exposure to show everybody around the world, I mean, it's priceless for what he did.
And when you think about the next 5 to 10 years, what do you see as some of the challenges or opportunities that our industry faces going forward?
Our industry has grown to a point I never thought I'd see it. And I tell everybody, when we get these bumps in the road and there's discussions and disagreements, I think our focus should be on maintaining it, figuring out how to keep it here. It's big. Horses are worth a lot of money, winning a lot of money. People, we're getting more and more interest all the time. And I think just kind of looking around and seeing what's keeping it, what's got it here. Let's figure out what that is to maintain it and not break it. That's what I'd like to see.
Great insight. Yes, and there's a magic here.
Yes, people come here that truly do have a passion for the sport and enjoy it. And when we judge them 15 horses, that Coliseum will be packed full of happy people. And it gets loud, and there's good energy, not bad energy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Celebrating the things that we all get to celebrate every day.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I know you've got a busy, 24 hours ahead of you, so they appreciate you so much sitting down with me. This was, again, Donnie Bricker, National Reining Horse Association judge, here with us at the Run for a Million. Thanks for tuning in on another episode of Behind the Curtain, brought to you by Markel.